We're now learning new and alarming details about Iran's latest missile attack on Israel. Military investigators now believe that Iran used a cluster bomb with warheads in Thursday's strike, fired from long-range ballistic missiles. Now, according to initial findings, each warhead actually split midair about 7 kilometers above the ground, scattering smaller bomblets across a wide area with a potential impact radius of up to 8 kilometers. Now, these types of munitions are known for causing extensive damage. They're banned under international treaties by over 100 countries, but not by Iran. Now, this revelation is raising serious concerns about Iran's escalation tactics and the level of devastation that it may be trying to inflict on Israeli cities. And I'd like to turn now to our guests in the studio. We have security analyst Yaakov Lapin with us, and of course, our senior Middle East correspondent, Ariel Osran. Ariel, tell us what we know about this cluster munition that has been used by the IRGC. I also believe that the IRGC just put out some type of statement regarding the warheads that were used in that attack.
Yeah, so IRGC affiliated media posting a video of the Khorram Shar 4 ballistic missile, claiming to have used it in this morning's attack used on central Israel. Now, the Khorram Shar can travel 2 kilometers, carry a warhead of 1,500 kilograms, and it is a cluster missile, and meaning that the warhead fragments into some 20 smaller munitions of roughly 3 kilograms each. But when this is detonated 7 kilometers in the air, has a spread radius of 8 kilometers, causing significant damage, and that is what we saw earlier today. Now, not only does this cause significant damage, but it also puts a strain on Israel's air defense capabilities, because this is no longer just one missile, one target, but rather a couple dozen, which makes it a lot more challenging for Israel to thwart it. Now, this is believed to be the first time Iran has used the Khorram Shar 4, posting a video of how it takes roughly 12 minutes to set up. And I believe that the Israeli Air Force is, as it's going after ballistic missiles, is always ready to fire, also looking after threats like this. But ultimately, this does pose a significant challenge to Israel's defenses.
Right. I kind of want to talk about that challenge. Obviously, we know that Israel's current air defense system has we have the Iron Dome, we have the Arrow. This can shoot down specific warheads that you say have one, I guess, location that they're shooting specifically. In the case of these cluster head munitions, what ultimately happens if we see an interception in the air beyond 7 kilometers? What will play out?
So ultimately, and again, we have to tread carefully here because we are working through different security constraints for what we can say. But what we can say is that, as you described, Israel's air defense systems is multi-tiered. It has the Arrow 1, 3, David Sling, Iron Dome, all these. Now, these are intended to go after, as you say, a single target. But what we have seen throughout this war, that even a missile that is intercepted can often pose a threat, but also a fragmented threat, and often multiple interceptors are subsequent interceptors are launched to go after that. A missile like this that has a few dozen makes it a lot more challenging, and that's why Israeli interceptors are attempting to thwart it outside of the atmosphere, where even if it does fragment into the clusters, it won't have the same impact once it penetrates the atmosphere, because these are intercontinental ballistic missiles. These are advanced weapons that makes it a lot more challenging. So the aim of the air defenses are to go after outside the atmosphere, but the single ones who manage to come through, they do cause some damage, as we saw this morning in central Israel.
Yaakov, you know, I'm interested to kind of hear what we know about the arsenal that the IRGC still has at this point, and obviously what this means about what they have within that arsenal. We were talking about just the number of munitions, and now there's a completely different question here as to, you know, the quantity of this specific type of missile. Also, there were claims that, or Iranian claims that hypersonic missiles were used as well. The IDF refuted that. In this case, the IDF does not seem to be refuting the fact that this type of cluster missile was used.
Yeah, this is not a new threat in terms of knowledge. The Iranians have been waving this missile around for years. I've been, following it, and I've written about it. And it's exactly as Ariel said. The goal here with our current air defense systems is to intercept this thing in space. If that's done, then all the cluster capabilities become irrelevant because it's blown up before it enters the atmosphere and splits off. Once it enters the atmosphere, it becomes a significant challenge because it turns into multiple targets that have to be tracked and hit. Israel does have a multi-layered air defense system which is capable of trying to take on that task, but the more threats you have at the same time, the more likely it is that some are going to get through, and that's especially true if we're talking about a warhead that splits off into basically a cluster bombs. So look, the goal here right now is to intercept it in space and of course to strike these launchers in Iran. Now we know that 2/3, according to the latest information coming from reports, 2/3 of Iranian missile launchers, right? Those are their guns. Right now we're talking about the bullets, but 2/3 of their guns, so to speak, have been destroyed. Now the more that goes on, the less they're going to have a capacity to fire. So even though this is a disturbing attack, if we zoom out for a second and look at the bigger picture, their capacity is decreasing with time. On the other side of the so-called fence, the Israeli Air Force has no limitations whatsoever in its ability to strike targets in Iran. So yes, this is a threat. This is something that the Iranians have been working on for many years. But I think overall they're firing a lot less than what they would have liked to fire at this stage of the war.
Obviously the question now is whether or not the United States is going to get involved, and we're going to speak about that shortly with